Let's go. Oh, wait. How did Casey get here? This isn't her podcast. This is our podcast. This is the Reality After Show, covering the Challenge World Championships exclusively on Paramount Plus. This is episode 10, Cruel World. I am your host, as always, Alex Trias, with my ride or die, Dan Montchal. Dan, what an episode.
It was an episode.
It was indeed an episode.
It was interesting. I still enjoyed a lot of it. I'm still overall enjoying the season. I think it's a great season overall. It's kind of refreshing, a little bit of a throwback type season. And no, as always, just pumped to talk with you. This is, Johnny and Matt, they have the Q&A. That's their favorite podcast they do every week. Us breaking down the challenge. This is my favorite one that we do every week.
Absolutely. And, us being the challenge, guys for Reality After Show, someone say we're the legends when it comes to talking about the challenge. And you know why? It's because we have honor.
Damn straight we do.
And don't worry, not within 10 minutes will we go back on our word about being honorable. Don't worry. It will not happen. I swear. Cut that footage. Cut that footage.
Jordan, I'm going to try this episode, buddy, but there's going to be some things that I can't even protect you from.
What? You're trying now? Come on. I have asked you to just swim alongside me as I try to show up an Olympian.
It's being a Jordan stan. It can be rough some days. Some days it's easy to just be like, see what he does. How amazing is he? And there's others where it's just like, hey, buddy, let's have a group meeting.
See, I was trying to think about what joke I wanted to do in Expensive Jordan Tory to start this podcast, because I was between that or talking about how, Dan, you've been so busy. You've been really putting the work in this year. You're the head person for the Australian Survivor podcast. You've been at the live parties. You just hosted the Q&A at the most recent watch party. And there'll be some more watch parties for Survivor 44 with Johnny Fairplay and Sandra Diaz Twine to round out this season. So it would only make sense for me to really take the onus here, because I just been here floating around in my little challenge bubble.
Are you comparing yourself to Jordan or Tori?
I would like neither. I would like to be Danny, who's just constantly looking at everyone and be like, why y'all stupid?
What I've noticed is it's been evident that these past two seasons is, my love for Jordan comes out. I've been all over the map with Tori. It's really been swinging negative lately. But the one thing that I know for sure is that unless it is an X's season, I do not want them on the same season together. Split them up.
Danny couldn't agree more with you. It's in the name. It's in the name, really. Yeah, like names think alike. But let's get into this episode. So we come back. Kiki and Darrell just won an elimination. Very early on, I have this bad pit in my stomach because I know, just because they decided to show Darrell a picture of Darrell's family. I'm like,
he's screwed.
Oh, you're going home. I hate that because I get to lose Kiki because of this, and I will stay on my Kiki stand-up. She does what she wants. She stands up for herself. She's a beast, even when she's in her shortcomings. But her shortcomings are justified because of you can't control asthma. You can't control that type of stuff. But she brings so much humor to the show, organic humor. It's just a nice, fresh breath of fresh air. Some of you may be able to tell, I have not been able to sleep much recently. So bear with me.
Kiki's great. I think, from this past year, so we'll just say from USA on.
Yeah,
so
USA on.
So roughly the past year. I think if there's two people that I want to see back on my screen from then, it's Olivia from Ride or Dies and it's Kiki. Those are the two I want invites out. They should already be out for 39.
Yeah, and
Whether either can do it or not is one thing, but I think that they've both done enough to deserve the calls for the next few seasons as long as they want them.
I agree. I think they really showcase what they could do. I think in a world where a good chunk of the Vacation Alliance isn't getting that call for the season, which I'm still hoping is true, perfect opportunity to like throw these people in and be like, let's really make you focal points on the show. We can make you the new wave because it's needed. It's always going to be needed. Like you can still have that Vacation Alliance core, just like how Bananas is still relevant, even though he started back in the early 2000s. It's like there's needed components, but you don't have everyone from the early 2000s showing up all the time now. It's like you need that balance, that spread.
I think I saw it was some comments and we'd hit on this. It was last week or 2 weeks ago that Tori, has become kind of the thing that she hated. She was so critical of Kara and Kara's cult, and that's what she's become. But the huge downside, and it's why I think some of the past few seasons have struggled from it, is that at least when it was Kara's cult, they were going after, it was the Jordan, it was the Tori, West, or not necessarily West, but like Bananas. And so the opposition was good competitors that also could put up a fight. But now with this new Vacation Alliance, it's what's their opposition? The rookies that we don't care about? Like,
what? You don't think Gabo's gonna take them on?
But at this point, like, okay, like I have 3 episodes of him. Where am I? He's new, so hasn't proved himself, but B, I have no investment in him. And so it's weird. We almost need, I like the dual factioning sides, but you need some people from either side that have some challenge equity, or at least, reality TV equity, that we already know a decent bit of their story and where they're going to go from here.
Right. And I feel like if that ultimately was the purpose of what this World Championships was like, the undertone was, yeah, we're doing this because it makes us money. It's a good publicity stunt. But if you're doing this to also really get a true chance of seeing these international people and the USA people be like, can we make them the next wave? I think you're hitting it. Like, I think you have an eclectic group of people, and you can see it in this final 6 of the MVPs. But you have Danny, Sarah, and Emily, a very tight alliance, playing very strategically. They like each other, but they're playing the game first above all else. I love that. You have Troy, who's just like he's sort of like a more balanced version of Jordan, where in terms of like his personality, like he's never going to be jumping off the screen at you, but he's a competitor, does very well rounded, loves going down in the sand and competing for his game. He believes that's the way to prove it. Like you see these people talking about like, oh, we need to hit the sand in order to like justify our win. We'll get there because I got thoughts, and you might have thoughts there too. But so we go back to here now. So we saw the Kiki and Troy of it all. They know that they're on the bottom. They need to figure out how to maneuver because the numbers are so small. But seemingly, it's the world versus Yes and Emily. Sarah and Danny and Emily and Yes are all talking. Sarah's just like, we need to ensure that either me and Theo win or you and Yes win because we made a deal. Like, we don't intend to keep it. But as Sarah says, your word only means so much. And then once you go against something that you've committed to, that's when your game will start crumbling. And with it being so close to the final, because we hear TJ say it during the recap, which I was surprised they were being so transparent in the recap, where he's like, it's two more challenges before the final. After 2 more eliminations, we're going in. Because that's never been done. Like, you usually get them the next time on, but not on the, like, previously on the challenge, we have 2 more eliminations before the final.
Maybe part of it is just simply because it's exclusively on Paramount
It
Plus,
is exclusively on Paramount
and
Plus.
it's been well established that it's a 12 episode season, where I feel like the past, I don't know, handful, maybe even, the past 10 seasons of, the main show, we have no idea how many episodes it is. Like
Right.
we have no idea how many episodes is total, how many episodes the final is going to be. It's really more up in the air, and it'll just be, oh yeah, like next week's it, then it's the reunion. So I don't know if maybe it has something to do with that it's pretty clear cut, like this is what you're getting from the season, or if it's something new they're trying out. But
damn, this season actually needed a reunion show. Because I doubt that they will, because they only have done a reunion for the first season of All Stars for anything on Paramount Plus side. So I doubt there will be one. I most likely will get to episode 12. Maybe there's a week gap after that, and then All Stars 4 comes out. Like, we could be, I from all sense and purposes, based off how the Twitter wackos are talking, All Stars 4 is pounding at the door right now, waiting to burst through. And based off some of the feedback, it sounds like it's going to be a lot more spicier than what a lot of us were anticipating.
Well, good. But come on, Alex, do you really think we were actually going to get a break? No, there's the challenge is 52 a week year season now. Like,
truly, like, I'm waiting for TJ to call us to give us a paycheck for the amount of work that we do for the challenge.
Seriously, if you're on the official MTV podcast, you get to take some weeks off and just disappear. We don't get any of that bullshit.
Yeah, maybe they go and are going to be on a show for a bootleg version of Amazon's free site that's made just to get ad revenue because they need money.
Okay, you brought it up. We've all seen it. We won't go into it deep or whatever, but they're calling that the GOAT. Who's the GOAT that was on the screen? No one.
Like, you'll have your reality TV stands saying like, oh, but like Devon is the GOAT of, like, look at her confessionals. I'm like, no, she's great. That's why it should have been called the alternative, the boss. Like,
Yeah.
it kept going back and forth between being called the GOAT or the boss. But like, if you're gonna call something the GOAT, you can't call something the GOAT and then pull these people where so many of us are gonna be like, Joey from The Circle. Like, in what world is Joey the GOAT? Like, the GOATs are your staple. That's like your reason to call the OG reality people. Like, that's where, unfortunately for them, some of those people already did a different show allegedly, maybe coming out
In
later
September.
this year. Who knows?
Yeah, potentially on E. I don't know. We'll
potentially
see.
Potentially on E. It's like the E needed a replacement for the Kardashians. Stay tuned. But getting back into here, so like we hear Sarah and Emily's conversation. They know that their target is Troy. They want Troy and Casey gone. They see Troy and Casey, of the two other Aussie teams, the bigger threat in the end game, which is how you should be looking at it when you're this damn close to the final. Because guess what? Having allies in a final doesn't do you anything because it's an individual game at that point.
It is, but I guess from a little bit of the hypocrisy,
Okay.
and I've loved what these MVPs have been bringing or whatever. They don't want to go, they're Danny, Sarah, they're telling, Tori, their partners, hey, turn on your friends because they are challenge beasts or whatever. They're looking at each other and it's just like, are you not afraid of your friends though? You're just afraid of people that aren't your friends. Because if you're looking at it, you could see that, yes, and Emily, like, they're a pretty decent team. If you're looking at Tori and Danny, like, they haven't done well, but in a final, they're a really good team.
Yeah.
You look at Sarah and Theo, like, Sarah's a beast and Theo's still an Olympic athlete who lost what is, generally viewed as the hardest final ever, lost by such a fraction of a time to Turbo. So Theo is a beast. So I think there's a little bit of the hypocrisy there of just being like, your friends are pretty solid too. It's not like one of you's awesome and the other two teams suck. They're just
Um,
like, oh, we'll be happy for second or third.
but like, do you weigh in how they have like how both sides have gone about their moves throughout this season? Because like the MVPs came in here, like they didn't know Emily from like Adam from Eve. You know, it was like
Of course.
Danny and Sarah being Survivor people. They're like, okay, you know, like we'll watch out for each other. We won our season together. Well, together. Danny won many hours before her. But so you have that agreement, and you're like Team USA, gotcha. But they make this connection with Emily and with Grant, people that they didn't know, create a new alliance, and like, yep, this is the alliance I'm rocking with this season, and I'm gonna go through it. And it's a little different for me than, well, we've known each other for years and garnered such goodwill with each other that we're gonna both bend over backwards to try to save Casey, even though like why would we save Casey over one of each other? We should just throw ourselves in. That's what you do, and that's what real challengers do. They fall under sword and look like an asshole on TV, and then lose.
So I have two things. First is, had Yes and Emily not won,
Oh yeah,
had they not won, were they actually going to throw them in? Because, or it would have been, I got to protect both of my number ones. I would, that we don't have the answer to. Who knows
well,
what
right.
would have happened?
It's such a difficult problem because like when we're going towards the daily, like we hear from Tori talking about how like she lists the sides and the sides are equal.
Mhm.
Where she's like, my side, it's me and Jordan and Theo and Casey. The other side that's also working together is Danny and Sarah and Yes and Emily. And what this is the part that like is confusing about it because she's like, we need to be able to unite both sides together. So you're talking about both groups. And then she says, we need to unite together and target Yes and Emily. So it's like, yeah, they're neither side, and you can give blame to Danny too. It's like neither side is giving an inch. Like they're
Yeah.
both like, we need to come together. So you're gonna lose your person. And then they're like, okay, I hear you, but actually you're gonna lose your person.
Yeah.
Cool? Cool. We're gonna rise up here. We're
No,
really gonna
and
come
I
together.
I love Danny. It's one of, I enjoying him on the show. And I don't want to stick up for Tori here because this really isn't a defense of her, but it's more of, I think he also needs to realize a little bit here. While 99% of the time he is right here, the one thing that he isn't acknowledging, because it's always, oh, Tori has too many friends, this or that or whatever, that if he was partnered with someone else who Tori didn't have as many friends, he would have been in elimination by now.
Oh
He's
yeah.
made enough moves, he's made enough waves that him and Tori wouldn't have been skating free this entire time without seeing elimination for some of the things that he's done.
But that's why, like we talked about last week, of ultimately we were debating why was it that Kiki, her Danny's wife Kiki, told Danny, like, if you can't get John A, get Tori. And the big thing we said was you team up with Tori, maybe not necessarily because you'll work amazing together, but
The connections.
you have the potential to have one of the easier paths to get to the final, which is ultimately the point of the show. Get to the
Mm.
final however you can and win that money. And that's Danny's philosophy. Danny's philosophy is like, why should I do more work than what I should? Like if I can find myself in a position where I have alliances and all these things, because he has protection not even because of Tori, but because of the work that he's done.
Oh, of
Like,
course.
because like we see it in the final, because like you have Tori like begging to like throw herself in. Ultimately, none of it would have mattered because one of the teams that was gonna go in regardless is one of the two teams was Troy and Casey. So it ultimately it wouldn't have mattered if Danny and Tori did offer themselves up because Danny did all this work to be like, it doesn't even matter if you throw me down. It's still gonna be Casey going into elimination because I have the relationship of Yes and Emily, not
Mm.
you. So I would say like they're both helped by each other. Um, Tori helps in the early stage because of all the numbers, but Danny helps over time as his numbers stay in the game, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
No, that makes sense. And that may just be a part of it, could be me being a little bit selfish because we know how much of a beast Danny is. And I just want to see him in the action more. And by the action, I mean the eliminations and stuff like this. Because
Okay,
from
well,
everything,
let's
everything
talk.
we're getting from him, I don't think he's someone like that. He's going to become a staple, a mainstay. Because I don't think he has the desire to do that. So
No,
if we're only going to get him a handful of times, we didn't see him at all in elimination in Challenge USA. We very well, unless he goes in next week, we could not see him in elimination at all here. Which for him in his political social game, good on him. Selfishly, I would have liked to see him down in the sand.
I totally get that. It's sort of like how, even though it's a team effort with these wins, it's like I feel like if you're a viewer of the challenge, you may not enjoy Casey because she doesn't bring electric TV, but it's a lot more fun seeing her in elimination every single week. Like
Yeah.
actually doing the work instead of just riding by. So I totally understand that. It's hypocrisy on my end because I'm just a very big fan of Danny.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, as someone who analyzes the game elements of the challenge, and we both know this, the best players don't never need to step into elimination. Like
No,
CT goes in eventually, but it's not because he wants to go in. It's because eventually people look at him and see, like, okay, now we actually have to try to get rid of him. But he always has this great political game as he has gotten older, and the intimidation when he was younger. Bananas, a bunch of his biggest wins were because maybe he would go into the first elimination, maybe he would go into elimination right before the final, but his game was, don't put me in. Like, I'm going to win some dailies. I'm going to make connections with you to the point where you feel it's smart to keep me in.
Completely agree. And this is going to set up, if you don't do it right now, to, later on completely dunking on it, which is fine. But it's simply why it's how I became like a big fan of Jordan. It's simply just his underdogs, where it's entertaining to see him go down there his seasons, like pretty much all that he won, his X's 2, Dirty 30 to a lesser degree, and then World of Worlds 2, where it's just like, that's, for me, it makes it the more rootable character, where they're thrown into that adversity where it's kind of put them against the house and see them come out on top. Because I think it's just a really good story when it happens. It's not always a good story.
Was he on the bottom in X's 2 though? Like I thought, maybe I'm misremembering.
He wasn't really on the bottom there. He caught once Bananas and Nani went out before they came back in.
Right.
He found himself on the bottom for a few episodes.
Right, because
like,
Leroy had to go in. Leroy flipped.
Yeah, they had to go in and take out Zach and John A. And he said 2 every season. So I think there was one more that they went in, but I don't know who him and Sarah went into against. I need a fact check.
And you know what? It would be Jordan who would have these stupid superstitions of like, well, I've only won when I've gone and won 2 eliminations in the same season. So we have to go down, Kaz. Sorry.
Oh, it's completely stupid, but it's also just something that, like, if you're him, like, knowing how he is, I could 100% believe that he's just like, this is just what has to happen.
But, and what's making this season very interesting to me is because it's Legends and MVPs, now we're getting to a point in the game where, like, there's a lot of stepping on each other's toes amongst a lot of these teams, where it's like, are they all strong teams at this point? Absolutely. But now we're starting to see, as they've been around each other more, like, more of that head-to-head conflict. Because, like, obviously we've seen it with Tori and Danny all season, and that's more of their strategic discrepancies. Like, they just had 2 different plans from the get-go. It just has not meshed, but because they have been protected despite themselves. Honestly.
They can't get out of their own way.
Right. Yes and Emily, I honestly, based off the edit, Yes and Emily are probably the closest team. Like, just straight off, because, it's Yes. Like, outside of Wes, who will do it for the screen time and say that Yes is a fake person, everyone gets along with Yes. You know, like Kiki and Darrell bicker because they may not be on the same wavelength when it comes to the competition side. But outside the competition side, they seem so chill. All the other teams, like Tori and Danny, are a mess. We don't get enough from Theo and Sarah because Theo's deciding to be wallpaper this game, and he might get a win because he's being wallpaper in this game. But it's not the Theo that I signed up for, which I know again is hypocritical because what I've been saying about Danny, but he has been very boring. Not even sticking up for his ex.
Once again, right there, it goes back to my point is that Theo was great in World of Worlds 1. Where I fell in love with Theo was World of Worlds 2, where he kept getting sent down to elimination.
And kicking ass.
And knocking everyone out until they gave Jordan a sledgehammer, which apparently is a cheat code.
Honestly, I'm surprised that they haven't given Jordan a sledgehammer daily at this point.
Well, they save it for eliminations because, the challenge is rigged and it's all fake.
And then you have Jordan and Kaz. And this is like the big focal point that was starting to be talked about last episode, but now becoming more evident this episode is, as much as we have seen in the past, a lot of people talk about how Jordan's this amazing teammate because he can, in some regards,
that been said in the past?
That's what people say. There's
a lot of people that have shit on him for being a teammate.
That's what I was going to bring up. I was like, as much as I see people like the fandom talking about like how, Jordan's always talked about for being such a great teammate. I'm like, he's a great competitor for sure. Like, you love having him as a teammate for that side of it. It's like why him and Sarah were an unstoppable duo, which is that they're both badasses who could just do whatever. But it definitely
they got to a point that season where they was fractured until they repaired it.
Right.
Yeah.
But here it's just like you can clearly tell that I feel Jordan came into the season because like you're being labeled a legend. Even if he wasn't being labeled a legend, he knows his game. He knows his like his rap sheet of challenge history. It's like, I've done this. Like, I am one of those people where if I'm not on Mount Rushmore, I'm right on the border of it type of player. And so I think he carries himself like that. And because he carries himself like that, and he has won because of that, despite some of his flaws of his game, he sort of blinds himself to those flaws and just automatically assumes his way is always the best way and that his partner's opinion doesn't truly matter.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. But I have one question for you. It's kind of a larger question. Yes, Jordan fan, but I recognize his faults. I recognize, especially earlier, it was a lot of mistakes he made that people should have been critical for him. I was critical about it for things that he did. And you have the same thing that it's like with Jordan and Bananas. I think they're even kind of grouped that always no matter what growth they've shown, and we've seen great growth stories from both of them, it's always brought up, F them. It's what they did back, in the past. They can't let it go, which if you can't let it go for some of the things they did, I'm not going to tell you that you're wrong. But it seems like the challenge fandom is really divided on that people either kind of accept it and they moved on from it, or they're always going to hold those issues in the past. Like I said, not telling you you're right or wrong either way.
Right.
Why do those two, we'll say legends, Bananas and Jordan, constantly have everything held against them from the past?
Mm-hmm.
Why doesn't CT? CT has just as many mistakes as everyone else in his past, to full-blown assault and battery, but he is so universally loved. And I love CT as well. I just always find it weird that in the challenge fandom, there are certain people that it doesn't matter if we've seen them change, we've seen growth, which is what I love in the reality TV is you see these people grow, you see how they change. And there's those certain people that's always going to be, I hate them, I'll never forgive them for what they did. But then you have someone like CT who has just as many old blemishes as anyone out there. But he is so universally loved, which I'm not telling you you're wrong for because CT's great. But
it's interesting because I think one part of it, and I'm speaking more so just my read on fans, is they don't see Bananas and Jordan's growth as genuine. They see it as production. Like they're like, I'm manufacturing this growth that I have, because then as soon as they make a slip up, that's their verification to be like, see, they never actually changed.
Asshole. Yeah.
They've always been an asshole, always will be an asshole, always someone that we can cancel. He's still canceled because of the things that he said or things that he did in the beginning. Because like, oh, Johnny's misogynistic because of how he treated people on the island season. But it's like I personally am someone like I love seeing growth. That's part of reality TV. They put themselves on there. They have to be open to the criticism that they get from it, but I'm someone as a viewer who loves to see a growth, and I've seen growth in all three of them. Like they still have their shortcomings, they still revert back to some of their old tendencies. But I think CT's is more so his comes across to the viewer as a lot more genuine.
That's
And
fair.
and the storylines that he has had, despite like the bad things from his earlier parts of his career, I think really draws on people's heartstrings, primarily the connection to DM.
Of course. No,
So
that makes
it's a
sense.
very interesting question. And as our viewers know, we love to have these little side topics during these types of episodes, because really this episode is straightforward. And like I'm going to be ranting very soon. So it's nice to think about, the best players. Anyway,
Just a question.
I know, and I loved it. So it's time for the daily. And it's called Points Break. There's 3 things for percentages. We got a 60% and 2 20%.
So this one I think I'm going to do fairly well at. The elimination I'm going to do god awful at. Because isn't it 60% endurance?
It is.
Which I was like, endurance. I felt like swimming should have been in there somewhere, but
I think it's included.
4 swimming takes endurance. Is it? I know the last 20% was logic, which I thought was a weird one. I'd rather have heart, but whatever. And what's that middle one that I'm missing? Is it teamwork?
It is teamwork.
Yes, finally.
And I get logic. I feel like this is one where you could put in math, because sort of is. But I get it. It's a lot. It's technically a logic puzzle because it's how many triangles are made up of the puzzle pieces when put in correctly. So the challenge is there's 6 floating platforms in the water, each having a puzzle piece on it. Each team is assigned a specific color puzzle piece. You and your partner are going to be tethered together and swimming to all 6 platforms one at a time, picking up a puzzle piece, bringing it back to shore. Once you do all that, you complete the puzzle. You then have 3 opportunities to answer the logic question regarding the puzzle. Whoever wins. Whoever's the last team to submit a correct answer, you're automatically into the arena.
No, it was a good challenge. Seemed a little bit catered to Emily, but
I mean, if Jordan doesn't make that mistake.
No, they're right there. And this would have been one that I know he was out weeks ago, but I think prior to Emily being here, the best swimmer in the challenge is probably still Wes. I think he's a little bit faster than Jordan.
And I think Zara probably would have been able to keep up with Wes as well, or at least not drag him down too much.
I would have loved to see Wes versus the Olympian. I think by themselves, had it not been tethered, that Emily obviously still wins because this is what she's gave so much of her life to do. But I would have loved to see that little wrinkle in it as well.
And like for the viewers, I'm gonna give Jordan his props there for keeping up with Emily. But as Jordan said himself, I don't think he keeps up with Emily if they don't have their individual anchors. I think we have seen, and some of it's just he's older now. Yes, was dragging Emily down some, and he admits it on his social media all the time how much Emily literally drags his body across the water. But they're neck and neck because Jordan's using the strategy of like, I know I'm not going to be like past her, but I can swim behind her. And as Emily comments, is like, well, as a swimmer, you know that
It makes it easier.
if someone's leading, it makes sense to swim behind because there's less current. There's less drag from the water because someone else has just gone through it. So they're neck and neck. They're constantly, but like we see Kaz and Jordan still like bickering. Every little thing is setting Jordan off here because like he feels the pressure. He knows it's his team that needs to be that needs to win in order to ensure that Yes and Emily go, because he can't rely on the other teams to keep up.
Are you kidding me? They all have such great swimmers.
Yeah, you know, they definitely, that's the squid approach is really a winner. God. I was actually surprised how well Casey did with Troy, because like we saw her in Ride or Dies, like Casey wasn't a good swimmer, but like I wonder if Troy was just like is such a good partner that like he was able to keep like a good pace for Casey so that she wouldn't tire out but still go faster.
Yeah, I think it's just it's crazy with these shows that so many people come on either A, not being able to swim, or have only ever dog paddled in their life, that if you can just do some competent swimming, even if it's only for 50% of the time, that I think there's so many people that are terrible at swimming that that's enough to make you look like you're doing pretty well.
I just feel like for example, Theo is coming back to win the game. Like that's obviously his goal, because like it's not like he's giving us much of anything else like in this season. Like Theo is playing a smart game, staying under the radar. He has his connection with Sarah, who has a connection with people, and he has his connection with Jordan and all of them. So like he's in a good spot, so it doesn't need to rock the boat. That's his strategy. But you have to assume that in the final there's going to be at least some portion that's swimming. And like if you're here to win that money, you guys are challengers. Like outside of that, you're just making money off of like your cameos and like your other stuff. It's not like you have a full-time job. Like go to a YMCA, swim laps, get better.
It's the Leroy approach. It's always worked out for him.
I mean, he got better though towards the end.
Did he? The fact that
he wasn't
drowning? Yeah. And I love Leroy. I absolutely love him.
Love Leroy. But I'll admit his fault to this game is like I'm just like, and I get it. It's probably also harder to learn when you're like a full grown adult at this point.
Oh, it absolutely is.
But like,
absolutely is.
But if this is your goal in life, is to be on the challenge and win finals, put in extra work and learn how to swim.
Well, I mean, Cara didn't do it either, so it goes across the board.
Yeah, but then she became like a CrossFit junkie and could just manhandle people. So she found her other ways of being very useful in finals.
Very true.
But we see they're keeping neck and neck. Really, all the other teams are not close at this point. Like Troy and Casey are like not too far behind, but they're far enough behind where they're not going to be a threat. It's going to be Jordan or it's going to be Yes and Emily. But Jordan makes a critical error where they get to their station, they throw the puzzle piece in, and Kaz notices Jordan picked the wrong color. He picked up Darrell and Kiki's color. So they have to do an extra lap.
He's good for one of those a season. Brutally messing up a challenge. Like I think free agents where, they were doing over water, and it was the beams where you're transferring it. And he made that mistake where he dropped it. He's had some others where it's been a fumble or a drop or just a mental error, but unfortunately not that surprising. Like I'd say about once a season, he has something where it's just like just lost concentration for a second or whatever it is.
Yeah. But yeah, so this is going to be potentially helpful for Darrell and Kiki because they meet up in the water and Jordan tries to like barter with Darrell. Be like, oh, we actually got your puzzle piece over here. Where did you get that piece? Like, could you go grab ours? And Darrell's just like,
no.
Nah, thanks though. And this is where we're starting to see Kiki struggle. So we're accepting the fact that Kiki and Darrell are going to be going in. My God, that scene after she gets the inhaler and
Oh
they're
yeah.
getting ready to go swimming. That unintentional comedy there of they're like panning, they're looking at the other swimmers, and you only see Kiki up like trying to take a breath, and Darrell just immediately goes and dives into the water and yanks her unexpectedly.
I appreciated that. Maybe Jordan thought that it was Tori's piece as King Cash. It could be.
You know what? Part of me was thinking about that, where I was just like, is he gonna start trying to grab Tori's pieces for her and like get her to the end? Because I'm just such a good competitor that I could do both and
They
still find a
probably would have
way.
been the only team that could have pulled it off of
Yeah.
just simply, hey, I'll get 2 of your pieces so that you only need to get 4, and we're still fast enough swimming that we won't come in last.
Yeah,
But
I think that's the big kicker. I think in a world where this only determined the winner, I think we see that happen.
yeah, no, that's true. Which I'm completely fine with not, because we've been well on record here that we want the loser to go
Yes.
straight to elimination.
Yeah.
Because
Even
the
if I
daily
like
needs
them,
to matter.
even if I like them, it's better TV. It's better TV. It's more. It makes a lot more sense to the viewer. Just keep it up. But ultimately, it's still neck and neck, even with the extra lap, because Yes and Emily make 2 wrong guesses. But
Jordan Kaz make 1.
right in the nick of time, Yes and Emily call for a check, and immediately after they asked for a check, Jordan asked for a check. They both said 16. Both teams were right. But because Jordan and Kaz had to do that extra lap, they don't get that win. Then the team that the rest of the house was quote unquote targeting is now in charge.
So here is now. I read this off. I forget who had posted it. I think it was somewhere on Twitter. So I, won't take it as gospel. But they had something saying that other cast members had confirmed it. That maybe the fix was in a little bit then for Darrell and Kiki, because what was said was that Emily told Sarah what the correct answer was, and then Jordan told, I'm assuming, I know he said Troy, so for Casey and Troy, and I'm assuming also told Tori.
That's what I assumed, because it felt so weird where for Tori and Danny, you just randomly hear Troy go, well, let's try 16 without like seeing them looking at the puzzle at all. She's like, oh, let's try 16. Check. I could believe that.
Yeah.
As soon as Yes and Emily are the winners, it makes all the sense in the world to just get Kiki and Darrell in there.
Because no one's working with them.
Because it's the only team that's not within either alliance.
Which we've discussed. Darrell floating in the middle only lasts for so long.
Hey, this is the furthest he's gotten by lasting in the middle in a while.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I agree with you. Like, in a world where Kiki had a different part of it, because like I do believe there's a lot of benefits that for her having Darrell as her partner.
Oh,
especially this version of Darrell, not the Darrell that was like trying to kill Brad.
I love that Darrell.
But like this even keeled version who's a father now and like all that, like he's a lot more, I think, a very good like nurturing teammate at this, like, and we've seen it with other people. Like Amber still has a huge bond with Darrell because of her rookie season where she was partnered with him for so long. So there's benefits to having him as a partner, but the benefits do not involve creating alliances, security, shit like that.
No, it's why, and when we talked about it at the beginning, I still would have loved to see had Kiki pick Theo, but I mean, as much as they've lasted, I saw that too.
The one time Darrell finally has an alliance, they all get sick, pregnant, and sent home. Poor Darrell. Even when he's taking our advice, he still finds himself in the same position.
He's he's trying.
He's trying. He did, and you know what? As much as we say he rides the middle, he did make a stand this season. He did say,
he did.
he did say, "Fuck the United States," and I said that shit. It
No,
just didn't work out.
he did that. You saw that on the trivia challenge, like he made that pact with Yes, which I
Yep.
think is something that we really haven't seen him do in the past. So he's learning a few new tricks.
Yeah, absolutely. But with Yes and Emily now safe, this is where it's like the world is falling for Casey, Jordan, and Tori. But Danny and Sarah and Emily are ecstatic because they're like, well, we weren't going to follow through with their plan anyway. So love this for us because now, just because Emily's in charge, and yes, we'll listen to Emily, Sarah and Theo are safe, Danny and Tori are safe. So it's either Jordan or Casey going in, and that's music to Danny's ears. Because all Danny wants, he's not saying we need to decimate all of Tori's allies. He's just like,
Just wants to be down to one.
I just wanted to have one number one. Is that too much to ask? Is for her to have one number one? But we hear this great discussion.
Tori wants 6 number ones. Just let her have it.
I know, but we had this discussion amongst them. It was like they have, because they are the MVPs and they don't have all the like years of game, they're able to play a little more strategically with less emotion tied to it. Whereas Danny says, like, these people have been so close to each other that it's almost impossible for them to play like a almost pure strategic game. Because he's not saying you can only do that and not have emotion, but he's like, their emotion is control and their connection is controlling so much of their strategy that it's not strategic.
Yeah. So King Cash in the comments also asked, why doesn't Darrell get vets respect like Jordan, CT, and Bananas? I thought it was interesting. I think it's simply just because he had such a long break. Like there's so many of these people that have come on, like Tori. There's no way Tori went back and watched all the old seasons. And I think where Jordan, CT, and Bananas, yes, they haven't necessarily been on every season, but they're a well-known quantity that each time there's kind of that new crop, they've always been there. They've been that constant. And I think Darrell taking he went from Ruins all the way till he came back into
Invasion of the Champs.
Invasion. Yeah. That it was just such a long time off. And also because there's people like Fessy and everyone else, they shit on it all the times. Most of Darrell's finals were quote unquote easier. I don't think all of them were, but some of them were.
Some of them were. But it's interesting because I just think it's because of the way that he plays the game. He's a family guy outside the show. Like he has kids to look after. He has all this. He's not going to all the events. He's not going on the vacations. And as we have seen in recent years, that's been a big part of how these alliances stay very tight from season to season, is because they spend so much time with each other planning all this shit out in the off season. Which is weird because there is no off season for the challenge anymore.
Well, even like when you see him come back with like all stars, like generally his closest person is like Derek. And I think that's just because they have so much history together that I don't think Darrell and Derek are staying in constant daily communication. I think it's because they have all that history together. That's the reason they're so close.
Right. But we go from Danny talking about the difference in how like Jordan, Casey, and Tori aren't able to separate the emotion. Q2, all of them not, except for Casey probably, being able to separate the emotion. Because Casey understands her spot. She's just like me and Troy are the ones being targeted here. Like, I think in her head, she's like, what is with all this like mess from Jordan and Tori? Like, if they want to go in, cool. Like, can we make that happen? And let me be safe. Because you hear in confessional with Jordan, because like Jordan's essentially, he's talking about honor. Like, the thing about us legends that the MVPs don't have is we have honor. Based off of years of working with each other, even though some of it was not working with each other, but okay. I bet it's very much honor when you call one of your allies a terrorist for asking me to
terrace
do
of
something.
love.
A terrace of love. But I don't know. It's weird because he did do this in Ride or Dies with Fessy, where like I'm a man of my word. I'm all about honor, integrity, respect. He's John Cena of the challenge, hustle, loyalty, respect. But he's like, I'm not gonna say your name, and then he goes and says his name because ultimately he's like self-preservation. This is a target. That's a threat. I'm gonna do it. And Casey says, should I even buy what he's saying? He loves to hear himself talk. He loves to hear himself talk, put himself on this high pedestal. But can I really even count on him to actually pull through with this? And the answer is no.
No. Well, I think Jordan, I'd say most people, they have a friend like this, and it's what Jordan is the friend that talks completely out of their ass. And you just understand that like when they're going that you're like, okay, probably only like 50% of that is true. And you just know it going into it that you take it for what it's worth.
Mm-hmm. So this leads us into Jordan and Kaz's argument. Theo's there. But, he's like, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to let them argue. No point in being a character in this season. I'm just going to lay here.
Well, I think that's smart. Just
no,
for
it
the
is
simple
smart.
fact for that, like, because we've seen this enough from Jordan that he's kind of the Jordan, and it's a little bit of it's a dialed back version of like the older CT that like when he's on one and he's stuck in this mindset that he's going on it, you could throw all the logic and sense at him. It's like arguing with a wall. You're never gonna win.
So like Jordan's saying Kaz is like talking about how, because prior to this we hear Tori starting to talk about wanting to throw herself in. After we just had this segment of Jordan saying, I'm going to throw myself in to stop Tori from making a stupid decision. Cue to Tori making a stupid decision and being like, I've been the worst ally to my people. And the empathetic side of her is like, I should protect them again. And this time protect them by throwing me and Danny in and competing.
Well, she has been the worst ally to what should be her number one in her partner, but
I agree. Very bad ally this season. And like if your partner wasn't Danny and it was like a Troy, this would have worked. Yeah. If you had Troy as your partner and you're saying like, oh well, we haven't gone in at all, like we really should be good allies, do this for them. Troy probably says yes. Danny's looking at you, just like, you woke me up to say this nonsense. I'm trying to get some sleep.
He has one goal, and it's to win.
And you have to respect that. Like,
absolutely.
Because a big talking point within this, and like we see Troy constantly making digs at Danny in his confessional about the not going into elimination, not touching the sand, but like, and this is where I'm not going on a soapbox. I'm not actually ranting because I don't got that time.
Do it.
But I hate, this is why Tori and Jordan need a break from the challenge. Like, I'm not saying forever. I will even take a 1-season break. Boom, let them have their mental space, because the challenge was never about, well, in order to win this game, you need to go down into elimination. The point of the challenge is a social political game with challenges in them to get to the ultimate physical test or physical mental test, which is the final. You only win the prize money, not your stipend, the prize money, if you get to the final and you win it. And you know what's the easiest way to get to the final? Never going down in elimination. So you can't be pitching that to someone who's smart like Danny and think that Danny's just going to buy that. He's going to be like, because Danny's about this money. Danny's about making this money for his wife and his kid.
Mm-hmm.
So in what world does it make sense to him to be like, so instead of us having a free ride this round, because like, guess what? Even if you do pull this off and we're the vote, like, yeah, Emily and Yes are not picking us to compete. So don't know why you're doing all this yelling for. But if I had that choice, or not going down elimination and securing our spot to go around further as we are just at the door of the final, yeah, I'm not competing. I'm competing in the final. I'm not competing in an elimination.
So I think first off, like, you're absolutely right. This makes no sense whatsoever. But I think what makes it worse is you have to take the game into consideration. That it gets brought up, and I know you love to talk about it, but Jordan, free agents, throws himself in, Bananas knocks him out. Was it a stupid move? 100%. It was dumb. But at least in that situation, the person that Jordan screws is Jordan.
Yeah.
He isn't tied to anyone. He isn't attached to anyone. It's not doing anything to anyone else but himself. If you're Tori, you have to look at this. You're not talking about just Tori. You are attached to Danny. So if you want to screw yourself, that's one thing, but you can't do that when you're attached to someone else. Like, it's the same way going, back to rivals, because apparently I just like calling shit back from years ago, is like Evan, if he wanted to screw himself because he needed to go, that's fine. It's different because he screws Nehemiah. Nehemiah goes when he throws it and decides to go down in against CT and Adam.
Right. No, like, you're absolutely on the money. And like, that's the thing. And I think this is what validates Danny's side of the argument about the MVPs are able to play this flexible game because they don't have these years of relationships. So I think it's hard for them to understand why these people can't just see that the game for what it is. Because I think in a world where like Danny has to make the hard call, he would.
Of course.
Like, he's not gonna, if it means he stays safe or Sarah stays safe, he's gonna be like, I love you, Sarah, but you're gonna go down there. Good luck. I'm gonna sit up here where it's safe. But like, from Tori's standpoint, I get it. Your ex-fiance and a really good friend in Casey, who's been one of your top allies for the last like few seasons.
My question for Tori is, did she feel like she was a bad ally not going down in the sand last season when she won and never went down? Probably not.
But I mean, that goes back to what Danny was saying. Like, are you playing for you to win, or are you trying to play for someone else to win? Because if you're playing for someone else to win, that's just stupid. And goes back into why I will side with Danny more, even though they're both doing sort of the same thing. But like, I give Danny more slack because this is only his second season. He's never said outright like, oh no, like, I'm never gonna let my pieces go. He's like, I would prefer my pieces to not go, but I'm never gonna put myself in jeopardy for them.
No, which is the smart thing to do. I mean, it's your favorite Bananas. That's what he does, is he sticks with his side, he rides it out. But if he knows he has no other choice, where it's he goes down or his ally.
She went into the first one.
Oh shit, I forgot about that. Whatever.
No, but I'm saying
you're right. You're right.
That doesn't count.
It was Sam and Kayla. I'm not worried about Sam Bird.
No one's afraid of Sam Bird.
But you're right. I forgot that they went down in the first one. That's on me.
But still, your point still stands. But Danny isn't gonna let Tori just throw him and her in. So now we go back to Kaz and Jordan.
At least they didn't burn on themselves this time.
No, they just all decided to just not vote. But we have Jordan and Kaz, who now they're really going head to head, because Kaz is just like, well, I just heard that Tori's gonna throw themselves in. Which, like, I get it.
Why would you talk her out of that?
Like, she's like, I get that you're close, but like, if they're gonna put themselves in, like, we have to think about our game. And Jordan just like takes off his sunglasses, goes, "But yeah, but I really want Tori to not make a stupid mistake, so we're going in, Kaz. Like, get ready." And Kaz is like, "What the fuck? Like, why are you making these decisions for us? Like, we are a team. Like, we should be collaborating together as partners." And Jordan just gets so confrontational, gets so aggressive with her, as Theo says, like, condescending to her, where he's like, I'm better than you. Kaz, like, I know it's the UK, so it's like minor league. But like, Kaz won her season. Like, it's not like she's some scrub who came onto the show. She has a title under her belt. She may know what she's doing. And it's like, again, what I get your Jordan, I get it's your MO, but you lose the argument when you talk about throwing yourself in and be like, I would know about making these types of decisions. I made that mistake before. And as soon as you say, I made that mistake before, you have lost the argument.
Yep. No, it wasn't good. But we talked
Love
about
getting to
this
see
back
Bananas win that wall climb again.
We talked about it, Ride or Dies. I want to know. I'd like to believe it would, but I would have loved to see had Ride or Dies went how it was planned if Jordan's partner was Naya, because I think that would have created more of that wedge between Jordan and Tori, and just the snowball effect of what could have happened after that. Could have been beautiful.
to be a world where not, but like, luckily it wasn't like it was COVID. It was something. It was also something serious. Yeah. I'm not saying COVID's not serious, because it is. But like, it was nicotine, or not nicotine. It was vapes.
It was vapes. Yep.
Which, people, like, I get people like their vapes. It's a battery. You're sucking on a battery. Do something else. There's so many other options for you.
Don't tell certain members that are part of the Reality After Show team that.
I know. It's my personal preference. Hey. But with all this aside, the arguments there, they're at an impasse. Like, Jordan's just like a reckoning's coming. I'm gonna be ruthless. So apparently him being ruthless is them going to Deliberation and be like, well, I'm not gonna throw myself in, so let's stalemate.
It was, I don't know. I think this was the only downside to coming to where you had to pick two teams, is that when you get down to so little,
right,
you really don't have many options.
No, and like next week, 2 wins today.
Yeah.
And it's not even, because 2 of them would have to go in anyway. So it's just like,
how do 2 people get nominated?
They really should just start the final at 5. And just have 2 eliminations starting the final. If you want to have 3 teams at the very end. You could still do 4 teams and just have 1 elimination. So it's like, I don't know. It's weird. They're weird. Jordan's weird because he's like going back on his word after just talking so much about how he's honorable and the legends have more honor than the MVPs ever could. But like, the MVPs have been loyal to each other.
Especially because everyone there knows, okay, let's stalemate. You might as well just say Troy and Casey's name. That's who's
and like Troy even says that. He's just like, let's be real. I'm getting thrown in. We all know I'm getting thrown in. Emily wants us for blood. I guess the one win is everyone has to dress up for it.
Yeah.
But I love Danny once again, like telling Tori off, because like Tori it's what he says going to elimination. It's all bark, very little bite, because she like does this big grandstand to like show to her allies, like, I have asked if we could go in and like really prove ourselves, and Danny's just like, my answer has not changed. You literally, we all were just out there waiting to come into the deliberation room. You have said this to all of them already. I gave you my answer. The answer is still no. We are not throwing ourselves in. Stop being stupid. And okay.
Well, what was it even going to do? She was going to volunteer to be one of the 2 teams. You know, it still would have happened. They wouldn't have went in.
Yeah.
Like, they would have picked. Yes, and Emily would have picked.
And guess what?
Jordan
if
Casey
something,
and Troy, or Jordan
right,
and Kaz.
I was gonna say, like, even if something screwy happened and it became Jordan and Kaz, and
Jordan
like,
and Kaz were going in.
Yeah, the only time Danny and Tori are actually going in is if somehow it all flipped around and it was Sarah and Theo and Danny and Tori going in.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only round because Emily's not putting Sarah in.
No.
So that was never going to happen. So they stalemate. We go down to the elimination because like I do find it weird how much like Kiki and Troy have bitterness to Emily over like, well, we are supposed to be Team Australia, but like this is what I love about the challenge. Emily has been holding a grudge since the challenge Australia, and it's like I'm here to collect on my revenge, please and thank you, and that's what I want. That's what I want. I'm not saying she's a great player. I'm just saying this is what we want as challenge people, even if it's against people you like. It's like I love seeing people just decide, hey, selfishly, I want revenge. I want to guarantee two of the people that screwed me over in my last game, one of them goes home this time.
No, the only hypocrisy that I saw was that Emily made it sound like, well, you know, back when Troy was still with Amber, it was Troy and Amber took the first shot at us. I'm like, not really. That was still you guys.
King Cash brings up a good point. It's crazy that Emily and Yes saw math and didn't just throw Kaz in. Jordan, what's 6 times 7?
Did they know that was on the backside though? Like prior to
That's a good question.
That's
a good question.
Because they would have seen it set up, but they may not have seen that math was on the backside and they just saw the wall. They may not have known.
Yeah,
because normally they don't explain what the elimination is.
And yes, chat, I know Jordan is friends with Casey. We have seen it on the show. We've seen it outside the show. It doesn't mean you still can't make a decision where you can choose yourself over your friend. If they're truly your friend, and this is something that I always stand by, in a game, in life, in whatever, mainly a game, because in life that's you being a dick. But like, if you had to choose between yourself and your friend, and this is about winning money for yourself, you pick yourself 100% of the time. And if they're your friend, they get it, because if they are truly your friend, they would admit to themselves they would do the exact same thing.
Question.
Yes, Dan. I love that you have your hand raised for the audio listeners.
So that's how you feel, which is right. And we've talked about, but what about your boy Bananas? Because when he gets thrown in, no matter what it may be, he doesn't always have that same viewpoint as you.
Oh, and that's a flaw. And like, part of it is, I like it from the entertainment aspect of seeing someone being bitter about it, even though it just makes sense to do it. So I don't know. Like you, I can see the flaws of my favorite players, and I account for them.
Of course, I feel like
I know
a lot of L's,
I've been bashing Jordan so much today for very reasonable things, so it only makes sense to get that in. It's okay.
Oh, that they were all incredibly accurate. I'm not arguing any.
No, that's the thing about the challenge. We can criticize absolutely everybody who plays the challenge.
Well, of course. Nobody's safe. It goes all the shows that we cover. I mean, we've talked about it like, we talk about Survivor all the time. It's that the best characters, and the ones that you love aren't the perfect players. They're the ones that they have some flaws. They show some personality. So, I mean, you don't want, if you go like that, like, Yes really doesn't have too many, flaws as far as all the bad things that he's done or whatever. You don't see too many people out there that are like, Yes is my favorite player.
Yeah. I just like Yes. I wouldn't say Yes is my favorite player.
Yeah.
As Johnny said, Yes is a Jedi. Love Yes. But okay, so that Yes and Emily pick Troy and Casey. They're once again down in elimination. The elimination is called Breakthrough. There are 4 different things.
Fuck, I have no clue.
It's 35%, 35%, 20%, and a 10%.
Is math in there?
Math is there. Which
I was gonna be real pissed off if it wasn't there, considering that math was in the elimination.
I'm sorry, it was
where there
hearts,
was no math.
not math.
So I'm gonna guess math.
Okay.
We're gonna go real broad on the rest of these. Is teamwork in there?
No.
Strength?
Yes.
Okay, strength through. Okay, like going through. There's 2 more.
Yep.
Are any of them stupid?
I mean, probably. It's percentages on a challenge lower
Yeah.
third.
Oh, yeah. Someone loves Fort Minor. Uh, I have no. What else would? All right, math, strength. It's not teamwork. Oh, focus. Seems like a stupid one.
No,
No focus.
no focus.
35% intangibles. I don't know. I have no idea.
Well, you got right the 35% math and a 20% strength.
Okay.
You were missing a 35% brain power
That's so dumb.
and 10% technique.
Next.
Okay, what's next is Troy and Casey win. But before some comedy, so they are the first ones to knock over their brick wall and fix it, get the right equation. Ultimately, Darrell and Kiki failed because Darrell was forgetting to subtract. He only did the first half of the equation, forgot to do the subtraction, so they weren't getting the right combination to unlock the rope.
And they didn't have, when they went through, they didn't knock as much down, so they didn't
Yeah.
have to put as much back together as
Yep.
Troy and Casey.
Yeah. So with that, they like Troy and Casey get to the second step, and we get this music like ramping us up. We're so ready to see people break through this wall, and they gave us some humor here of both Troy and Casey both individually getting pump up music to break through the wall, and he just smack into it like they were nothing. Ultimately, though, they do break through eventually, complete their puzzle because it looked extremely easy. It was just a version of the logo, I guess. At first, I thought they were doing a Survivor logo with how it was looking separated, but they win again. This calls the end of Darrell and Kiki's game, which Kiki, you can hold your head up high. Like, this is your first ever loss in a challenge, and you almost got to the end again. Like, Kiki, you're badass. I hope we see you in more seasons. Darrell, you made small improvements. Be more aggressive. I would love more aggressive Darrell.
No, I thought it was a good season for Darrell. I mean, they did
It's
have the
a lot better than
elimination
the
win.
last few.
Yeah, they got, they do have the daily win that they got on them. Darrell didn't panic too much at heights.
Nope.
I thought it was a pretty strong season for both of them. And in a different world where there's just a few minor adjustments or things shake out different ways, they could have easily been in this final.
Absolutely. But now we're down to 5 teams. We still have one more elimination to go. We see on the next time on that we will get an elimination and at least the tease to start the final. We're approaching the end game, folks. So next week, we will make our predictions on who wins the final. But Dan, I think this is where we can close things out.
Yeah, that'll wrap us up for us. As Alex said, him and I will be back next week, probably Friday, right around the same time, the 3 or 4 o'clock range. We had mentioned earlier that I was at one of Johnny Fairplay's live events this week. Got to host the Q&A. It was in Durham. Got meet the Queen, Sandra, Princess Nina, and as well as Jesse Lopez from season 43. So if you're able to go to, and you're a Survivor fan, to go to any of these live events, I highly recommend it. There is only 3 weeks left, as that is it before this season is over. It is going by quick. Next week, Johnny will be in Chicago, Illinois at Bounce Nightclub. The following week, he will be in Charlottesville, Virginia for another beer release. And then for the finale, it will be in Charlotte, North Carolina at Lenny Boy Brewing. All of these, he will be joined by the Queen, Sandra Diaz-Twine, as well as other surprise guests and former castaways. You can get tickets for that at survivortix.com. That's survivortix.com. We appreciate all the love and support that you showed this podcast. We've been doing really well numbers-wise, and in the engagement, all the comments, especially with Alex, becoming a little bit more on fire on Twitter. We appreciate all the love and support. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. That way you get notified anytime that we go live. Right now, we're kind of in the slower part of the season. It's just myself and Alex on Fridays talking about the challenge. As always, right after Survivor 44, there'll be some combination of Alex, Matt the Beard Bischoff, and myself discussing that. And then throughout the week, you can hear Johnny's take on it as himself and Wayne. They saw them. They weren't able to go this week. It looks like they're going Monday to give their thoughts on last week's episode. If you're listening to us on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you listen to your podcasts, make sure to hit the like there, rate and review 5 stars. It means a lot. It takes just a few seconds. We appreciate it. And then, as always, the best way to support the podcast is become a patron. That's at realitypatron.com. That gets you access to the secret Facebook group where you can ask questions for the Q&A that Matt and Johnny do every single week. And in a few weeks, they are going to be starting their patron exclusive of Australian Survivor, Brains versus Brawn, as well as you get some, Johnny posts different videos. I know because you're not getting his take when he does these Q&As, he will be posting them there. So you get a ton of bonus content. Try it for a month for free. If you don't like it, Johnny will send your money back. That is going to do it for us. We will see you all next week. See ya.
See ya.
And for more bonus content, go to realitypatron.com. That's right, become a patron now. Get additional coverage of all your favorite shows, the weekly Q&A, and you become a member of the secret, exclusive Facebook group. That's realitypatron.com.